I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Wizard Primer, and today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to try to power through all 5 Conjuration abilities at once. Because they're all armors, they all look the same. They're really like active passives, and I actually think they're lacking in what they do right now, mostly because they don't have an active component and a passive component, like say the Demon Hunter's Pets, or the Crusader's Laws, or the Monk's Mantras. They're just passives for you, and that's it. And you have to recast them because they only last 10 minutes. Honestly, I think they're kind of obnoxious in that they don't have the active passive component, but that's just me. And I'm sure people are fine with them being the way they are, but I think they do need just something to make them a little more interesting and not just feel like you've got passives that need to be refreshed on your bar. So, I'll go through all 5 real quick. Ice Armor, you surround yourself with a barrier of ice and you get 12% melee damage reduction. Enemies that attack are either chilled or frozen. Storm Armor, you periodically deal lightning damage in the form of purple lightning bolts. Magic Weapon is a damage bonus on your weapon. Familiar is a little doodly-doo that floats over your head and attacks every time you do. And Energy Armor is an arcane barrier that sits around you. And you can see I've got one on right now. So Frost Armor. Frost Armor creates this little ice cloud around you. Well, actually, that's the rune. We'll just go on rune for now. It creates this little ice cloud around you, and the various runes, except for this one, are basically all going to look the same. This one gives you that little aura that follows you around. Crystallize is probably your best bet for this, because whenever you're struck by a melee attack, your armor is increased by 20% for 30 seconds, and that can stack 3 times. Jagged Ice adds a Thorns component to melee attackers. Ice Reflect has a chance to create Frost Novas, centered on the attacker. I don't think they actually freeze, they just deal damage. And then Frozen Storm is you're probably going to end up being the most used one, because it's great for farming. And I mentioned this earlier, but if you combine this with the Warzekian Arm Guards, you'll just run through objects and break them to pieces. And if you combine this, Explosive Blast, Arcane Orb, Arcane Orbit, Frozen Armor, Ice Armor, Frozen Storm. Have I been saying Frost Armor this whole time? Ice Armor, Frozen Storm. You will have a really solid, like, normal difficulty farming setup. Great for speed farming bounties, though now I don't really think you're going to be doing that. What with bounties giving guaranteed drops in Torment 6. So, that's that. We can go and try to provoke enemies into smacking us upside the head to try and get them frozen. Always a risk, though. So it'll also maybe trigger our Tall Rasha. Come on, freeze! Someone freeze! There, that guy froze. And as you can see, my armor's just gone up. So I did get a big toughness boost out of that, even though I still take a ton of damage. And it doesn't work against ranged. And I think that's kind of a problem. And I really do think it should... Ice Armor should give you just a flat damage reduction. But again, I'm probably sounding a little complainy. So Storm Armor. Storm Armor will periodically deal damage to enemies. Storm Armor is, I guess, of the 3, is supposed to be your high DPS one, but it's a super risky maneuver to use Storm Armor, because you can only have 1 armor active at a time. It is super risky to use Storm Armor, because you don't get any defensive bonus out of it. Storm Armor, we can go right back to the Cathedral. That level of the Cathedral, and we can see it. You'll see purple lightning bolts. That's Storm Armor. And the reactive armor creates these little shockbacks against the enemy. I don't think it has a visual effect, but you'll occasionally see the enemy take damage. I'm gonna put teleport back there so I can actually move around when I need to. Power of the Storm is actually one of the best runes for this because it can help you channel like crazy. Because just a flat 3-point reduction is great. Thunderstorm is just an increase in the damage. Scramble's potentially a good farming rune for this. If you don't have your Warzekian Arm Guards, you could possibly use this to help farm. And Shocking Aspect used to be part of Shocknado Shards. It was the shock part. Now I don't actually think you'd ever use it. It's just extra damage when you crit. So we'll go back to that because we're going to Magic Weapon next. Magic Weapon's a 10% damage increase while active. And I really dislike Magic Weapon. I've been very vocal about it in other episodes related to Diablo 3. But it is so boring and so uninteresting. I mean, it merits 3 seconds of silence like that. But Electrify adds these little like lightning bolts on to your attacks. I don't think you'll actually be able to see them with anything because I can turn it on. But that's lightning. Force Weapon is extra damage. Ignite gives you bonus fire damage, and Deflection gives you this energy shield around you. Conduit's probably the one that's easiest for me to live with because it actively gives you arcane power back whenever you hit enemies. So you can go back to this cathedral area, and as you can see, my arcane power will jump way back up, which allows me to drop a meteor, and my arcane power will go way back up, which will allow me to drop a meteor. And I really do wish they had more of the runes. For Magic Weapon, you could easily fix the problem of it being kind of boring by giving it things like that to do, rather than just be a flat damage boost. And that's why Deflection and Conduit are probably my favorite runes for this, because they do stuff. Ignite, Force Weapon, and Electrified are just extra damage, and that's just kind of boring in my opinion. But, I mean, it's solid extra damage, don't get me wrong. Familiar gives you this little dealy bopper that floats around. Oh, they'll be there. Okay. This little dealy bopper that floats around you, and every time you attack, it fires a little missile out. All of the runes are basically gonna be the same thing, just looking a little different. Sparkflint gives you 10% more damage. Is a good, solid damage boost. It does stack with all your other damage boosts. Icicle is a little chance to freeze. Oops. There's a little chance to freeze. It has like its little blue beam. Ancient Guardian is sort of a oh crap I got hit hard ability. Arcanaut is also a really solid addition because it gives you a ton of arcane power regen. And I believe it jumps mine up to something like 20.39 arcane power per second with Arcanaut active. Cannoneer's great for thirst going. Cannoneer's great for channeling abilities because it adds a tiny AoE to a channeled effect, and I don't know if I'm gonna get a good view of it with this, but we could try. Yeah, meteors blow everything up. You'll see, like, it's very, very hard to see it, but you can sort of see there's this little extra bit of damage that's sort of a tiny, tiny AoE. And it's actually just good to add on a lot of damage to a channeled ability. So, that's that. Finally, we're gonna switch everything back to normal and go to Energy Armor. Energy Armor is basically gonna look the same for every single one of these. Absorption, you have a chance to gain 4 arcane power when you're hit by a melee attack. Pinpoint Barrier is a great DPS boost. Energy Tap is a great arcane power boost. Force armor, it works as an oh crap button, and it could potentially be flat damage reduction depending on how strong the enemies are. And prismatic armor, which of the 3 armors and all 15 runes you have, odds are you're using energy armor, prismatic armor. It is just too big a toughness boost to pass up unless you're doing something specific, like what I'm doing, where I'm using energy armor to get up to 197 or energy tap to get to 197 arcane power. Also, you could potentially use pinpoint barrier because it will be a potentially giant DPS boost. But energy armor, prismatic armor, is usually the way to go. Sometimes you'll use something different, but most likely you'll be using energy armor, prismatic armor. And it's a little sad that of all the armors, with all they could do, you're just going to go for the flat defense boost. There's nothing really wrong with that, but I just wish it were more. Like I said, an active passive component would make these amazing. So, that's all of these abilities done real quick. Next up, we'll get to the final category, the 4 mastery abilities. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys later.